And the other good news is, of course, if you're a Daniel Ricciardo fan, that he's the guy who comes out on top today based on this one metric, which is how many places you make up from your starting position. Daniel Ricciardo today started 12th and finished 8th. So we get to see Daniel on this chart. And it gives us an opportunity, gentlemen, to talk about Daniel, but in particular talk about the McLaren team and the dynamic between Daniel, 32 years of age, and his 22-year-old teammate, Lando Norris. I'm going to go to you, Steve, first of all, for your thoughts.
Well, I think actually it showed the strength of both of the McLaren drivers in that Lando was in the latter stage of the race, obviously getting a little bit frustrated that he was being held by team orders behind Daniel. I think neither of the two McLarens in this particular scenario, and with the high downforce settings they had, were going to make an impression on the seventh place Fernando Alonso. But it was certainly clear that Lando was getting quite frustrated and wanting to push as hard as he possibly could in order to do that. Equally, though, Daniel Ricciardo, and I still can't quite think of Daniel Ricciardo as being one of the veteran drivers, but he is now. He's getting to the point where he's into the last 2 or 3 seasons of his career, probably. He's got a lot of experience. He's been there, he's won races, he's come close to world championships, and he's a great street fighter as well. He loves racing on street circuits. And Daniel today paced himself beautifully. When the team told him to hold back a little bit from behind Fernando Alonso, he did that, and he kept his brakes cool, he kept his engine cool. And actually, sometimes when the car isn't actually 100% for you, getting a result out of that car is a real achievement. And he actually achieved, I think, superbly today. But again, that team, they've got an absolutely perfect scenario. They've got 2 drivers who are really equally matched. And we've seen Daniel Ricciardo come back into harmony with that car. Early in the season, he and the car just did not bond. It was as easy as that. The last few races, though, I think Daniel's just done a great job of actually, getting himself into gear, and he's come back against the fantastic challenge of Lando Norris. It's always good to beat your teammate, but this one would have been a sweet one for him.
Just Alex, look at the other side of that coin. Only the second time that Daniel's finished in the points. I think it's the 6th time that Lando has. Lando clearly not happy finishing behind Daniel, regardless of the team strategy. You, as the ex-F1 driver, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think Steve said it quite well as well, because he is a veteran now, isn't he? I wonder if he's starting to feel a little bit like Mark Webber in, say, 2013, I want to say, or 2012. So he's still a great driver, but he's under pressure for sure. I mean, he got the result today, but he also got a bit lucky, didn't he? Because he came in when Magnussen stopped, they had a virtual safety car, and that's when Ricciardo stopped. If he hadn't had that virtual safety car, that last pit stop would probably put him behind Lando Norris at that point. So he got a little bit lucky today. It's a real question. It's a real tough season for Ricciardo now, because he's been with McLaren 2 years now. He's definitely settled. And yes, you can say he's a great driver and everything, and he is, but he's up against Lando Norris right now. Lando Norris is showing to be a bit of a superstar. So Ricciardo's got to dig deep, Is he just going to be happy to just ride on what he's done and achieve the occasional good result? Or is he going to be able to dig deeper and try and find something more and take the fight and get on par with Lando Norris and even beat him? That's the big question.
It is a big question. And one of the things to remember about this race, of course, is that Daniel started on the hard tyres, which was relatively unusual, wasn't it? I think he was one of only 2 or 3 people that started on the hard. And to me, that was because the team were thinking our only way of getting into the points here is running a sort of somewhat counter strategy. And as you say, Alex, using Daniel's veteran status. But I'm going to go with another angle on this, which is maybe the McLaren is not as good a car as it looks, and that actually Daniel's driving it to, let's say, 100%. And Daniel hasn't changed. Daniel hasn't lost any pace over what he was at with Renault. And actually, Lando Norris is a megastar in the vein of Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, and maybe George Russell. And we just don't know it yet. Steve?
I think you've got a very valid point. I mean, the simple fact is, if you looked at the budget statistics for Formula One teams, The McLaren team, actually, although they're very well funded, are nowhere near the top 3 teams or top 4 teams in terms of the budget they've got to spend on racing, and they're probably delivering the best bang for the buck of probably any one of the mid-ranked teams at the moment. So they don't have an infinite development budget, but they're making what they've got work really well. And it's still a difficult car to drive this. It was having to run a lot of downforce. It was running a lot of wing angles. You can probably see on the images there. It was almost like dragging a house round behind the car in terms of aerodynamics. It was something like 15 kilometers an hour slower down the straight than the Alpine. So they it's not an easy car. And don't forget, when you're generating a whole bunch of drag down the straight, it's not just your straight line speed. It means you're burning more fuel. So you're probably actually having to start with 3 or 4 kilos more fuel in the car at the start of the race than some of the slicker guys. So there's no 2 ways about it. It's a difficult car to drive. But if they've got 2 drivers out there who are pulling in results all the time, and that's okay. Ricciardo's been disappointing in the early part of the season, but this was proof that he can still be on top of his game.